The signal came on a Tuesday morning. A pattern too perfect to be natural, too complex to be coincidence. For 3 days, scientists around the world analyzed the message beaming from somewhere near Alpha Centauri. On the 4th day, they decoded it: "We are coming." 2 months later, they arrived. The sky darkened over major cities as 5 massive ships, each the size of a small mountain, hovered silently above Earth. Panic gave way to cautious diplomacy as the visitors, calling themselves the Vex, requested a meeting with Earth's leaders. Commander Tom Jackson straightened his uniform as he entered the United Nations Emergency Chamber. A decorated veteran with 30 years of military service, he now found himself humanity's representative to the stars. The weight of billions of lives pressed down on his broad shoulders. "Remember," General Harris whispered beside him, "show strength but not aggression. We know nothing about their intentions." The Vex ambassador, Lord Krill, stood nearly 7 feet tall with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His 4 arms ended in long, delicate fingers, and his large eyes, black as space itself, revealed no emotion. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Union," Krill's voice resonated through a translator. "Your world has finally advanced enough to warrant our attention." The following days brought a flurry of meetings. The Vex displayed technology that made Earth's most advanced systems look like children's toys. They could manipulate gravity, bend light, and travel faster than thought possible. Earth scientists watched in wonder while military leaders observed with growing concern. On the 5th day, Lord Krill requested a presentation of Earth's defensive capabilities. "To assess your protection needs," he explained smoothly. Inside the secure briefing room, military officials from various nations displayed their most advanced fighter jets, missile systems, and battle strategies. Mike Wilson, a veteran combat instructor, noticed the subtle changes in the aliens' posture as each weapon was presented. "This is your most advanced projectile device?" Lord Krill held up a high-caliber bullet, examining it like a curious relic. "You propel small metal objects using chemical explosions?" A sound like tinkling bells emerged from his chest, laughter. The room grew tense as the aliens began openly mocking the displayed weapons. They passed around grenades and rifle rounds, their 4-fingered hands handling them carelessly. "Your species still relies on physical projectiles and explosions," Krill observed, not bothering to hide his amusement. "Most civilizations abandon such primitive methods once they discover energy manipulation." General Harris frowned. "These primitive weapons have protected our nations for centuries." "Protected from each other, perhaps," Krill replied. "But the universe contains true threats. Your weapons would not stop even the weakest interstellar predators." The alien demonstration that followed left the human delegation silent. Krill activated a personal shield that effortlessly absorbed laser fire, then displayed a handheld device that could disintegrate steel. "We offer Earth protection," Krill announced to the world leaders the next day. "In exchange for reasonable access to your resources, we will defend your world from cosmic threats you cannot imagine." The UN Security Council erupted in debate. Many nations favored accepting the offer, seeing no alternative against such technology. Others remained suspicious of the aliens' true intentions. Mike Wilson cornered Commander Jackson in a hallway after the meeting. "Sir, something doesn't add up. The way they handled our weapons, they weren't just being condescending." "What do you mean?" Jackson asked. "They weren't afraid of them. At all. Even the most advanced body armor leaves soldiers cautious around explosives, but they passed around active grenades like toys." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "You think there's something they're not telling us?" "I think," Wilson said carefully, "we should look closer at what they're dismissing." That evening, Lord Krill gathered with his officers aboard their ship. "The humans will accept our terms," he said, gazing down at the glittering cities below. "Their weapons are toys, their defenses laughable. This world will be ours within a standard cycle." His second-in-command nodded. They do not even suspect? How could they? Krill's mouth stretched in what passed for a smile among his kind. They are children playing with sticks, unaware of the true nature of power. By the time they learn otherwise, it will be far too late. 3 weeks after first contact, the Vex had established bases in 12 locations across Earth. Each compound housed alien engineers and scientists who claimed to be sharing technology with humanity. In reality, they were assessing resources and strategic points for the coming occupation. Dr. Ben Adams adjusted his glasses as he studied the alien power core. As one of Earth's leading physicists, he had been assigned to work alongside the Vex technicians at the North American compound. Beside him, biologist Dr. Lisa Green carefully documented every interaction. "Notice how they never remove their personal devices," Lisa whispered, nodding toward the 3 Vex engineers across the lab. Each alien wore a small silver disc at the base of their neck. "I believe those generate their protective fields." Ben nodded slightly. "And have you seen any of them carrying projectile weapons? Anything physical at all?" "Only energy-based tools," Lisa confirmed. "Everything they use involves manipulated energy or force fields." This pattern had emerged across all Vex installations. Despite claiming to study human technology, the aliens showed particular disinterest in mechanical weapons. They focused instead on electronic systems, communications, and resource extraction methods. At the military base outside Denver, Mike Wilson watched as Vex observers examined decommissioned tanks with bemused curiosity. "Such inefficient machines," one alien remarked. "Why armor your vehicles with metal when energy shields are lighter and more effective?" Wilson's eyes narrowed. "Just our primitive approach, I suppose." Later that day, Wilson met with Commander Jackson in a secure room swept for surveillance devices. "Sir, they've never developed physical armor," he reported. "Their protective systems are entirely energy-based." Jackson leaned forward. "You're certain?" "Their bodies have almost no natural protection, thin skin, fragile bone structure. They evolved relying on their technology. I've never seen any of them wear anything resembling conventional armor." Professor James Brown, a military historian, joined their conversation. The elderly professor had spent decades studying the evolution of human warfare. "Throughout human history," Brown explained, "we developed projectile weapons to overcome physical armor. From bows to bullets, we've always found ways to deliver kinetic force at a distance." He spread several diagrams on the table. "But what if the Vex evolved without this arms race? What if their conflicts were always fought with energy weapons against energy shields?" The implications hung heavy in the air. "We need to test this theory," Jackson decided. 2 days later, in a secure underground facility, a team assembled a demonstration. A captured Vex personal shield device was activated around a mannequin. The aliens had shown how these shields could repel their energy weapons when set to low power. Wilson aimed a standard military rifle at the shimmering field. "If I'm wrong, nothing happens," he said. "The shield blocks physical objects just like energy." The crack of the rifle echoed through the chamber. The bullet passed through the energy shield without slowing and embedded itself in the mannequin's chest. Silence fell over the observation room. "Their shields don't stop bullets," Ben whispered in disbelief. "All that advanced technology, and they never accounted for simple kinetic projectiles." "Because they've never needed to," Professor Brown concluded. "Their entire civilization might have evolved without ever developing or defending against physical weapons." As the implications sank in, Lisa voiced what everyone was thinking: they don't know. That's why they laughed at our weapons. They genuinely think they're useless. Commander Jackson's face hardened with resolve. "Then we have an advantage they don't even know exists. We need to keep this discovery absolutely secret while we develop a response plan." Outside, the Vex continued their preparations, blissfully unaware of the critical flaw humans had discovered in their seemingly perfect defenses. The basement beneath the Pentagon had not been used since the Cold War. Now, it housed representatives from 28 nations, gathered in absolute secrecy. No electronic devices were allowed inside. Guards with signal jammers patrolled the corridors. Nothing could risk exposing what had become humanity's greatest hope. Commander Jackson stood before the assembled leaders, his face grave. "We've confirmed our findings across multiple tests. Vex shields provide no protection against physical projectiles. Their entire defense system is built to counter energy-based attacks, not kinetic weapons." The Russian general leaned forward. "How is this possible? Such advanced beings never developed bulletproof technology." Professor Brown addressed the question. "Evolution shapes technology. On Earth, we developed spears, then bows, then firearms. Each innovation required new defenses. The Vex appear to have evolved along a completely different path, developing energy manipulation early and abandoning physical weapons entirely. They've never experienced warfare as we understand it," Ben added. "Their battles would be more like computer hacking contests, each side trying to disrupt the other's energy systems." The Chinese premier's eyes narrowed. "Then they have never truly known violence as humans define it." An uncomfortable silence followed as everyone absorbed the implications. "We need to act quickly," Jackson continued. "The Vex are becoming more demanding each day. Their protection is looking more like occupation." The plan took shape over the next hours. Every nation would quietly reactivate manufacturing facilities for outdated weapons, rifles, machine guns, even bows and crossbows. Nothing that required advanced electronics the Vex might detect or monitor. "We'll need a diversion," Lisa suggested. "Something to keep their attention while we prepare." Jackson nodded. "I've already proposed a global tour for their leadership. I've convinced Lord Krill that we're ready to formally surrender our military independence. We'll show them our most advanced facilities. The ones they already know about," Mike Wilson cut in with a grim smile. "Exactly. Meanwhile, we'll be arming resistance cells with weapons the Vex consider ancient history." Maps spread across the table showed key Vex installations. Intelligence reports detailed alien patrol patterns and weaknesses in their security systems. Ben had discovered their ship's hull material was surprisingly vulnerable to common explosives, another consequence of evolving without physical warfare. "What about civilian casualties?" The German chancellor voiced the concern weighing on everyone's mind. "We start with isolated Vex patrols," Jackson answered. "Small groups away from population centers. We capture one of their ships intact if possible, we'll need their technology afterward." As the meeting concluded, reports arrived from around the globe. The Vex had begun confiscating Earth's natural resources without permission. Their protection had led to disappearances of people who questioned their authority. In some regions, Vex patrols now enforced curfews. "They're not even trying to hide their true intentions anymore," Wilson observed bitterly. Jackson gathered his closest advisors as the world leaders departed. "We have 3 weeks at most before they secure complete control. Every gun, every bullet, every archer, everyone with the ability to deliver physical force will become part of Earth's defense." On his ship orbiting Earth, Lord Krill received the invitation to tour Earth's military facilities with satisfaction. "They surrender more quickly than expected," he told his officers. "Ready the extraction teams. Once we've disabled their remaining defenses, full resource collection can begin." The Vex continued to underestimate the species they sought to conquer, unaware that humans had been masters of physical violence long before they learned to split the atom. The small farming town of Millfield had no strategic importance. Perhaps that's why the Vex chose it for their first show of force, a demonstration of what happened to humans who didn't comply with their increasingly harsh demands. 5 Vex soldiers marched down Main Street shortly after dawn. Their translucent shields shimmered around them as they approached the town's grain storage facility. "Your settlement has been selected for resource allocation," the lead alien announced through its translator. "Surrender your food supplies immediately." Town Mayor Frank Miller stood his ground. "This is all we have for winter. We've already given the agreed portion to your collectors last week." "The agreement has been modified," the Vex commander replied coldly. "Comply or face consequences." When Miller refused again, the alien raised its weapon. A pulse of energy knocked the mayor backward. Screams erupted as townspeople scattered. What happened next wasn't planned in any military briefing. Old Ted Cooper, watching from his front porch, calmly lifted his hunting rifle. The 70-year-old had been shooting deer every season for 5 decades. He took aim at the alien who'd struck the mayor and squeezed the trigger. The crack of the rifle cut through the morning air. The Vex commander's head snapped back as the bullet passed straight through its shield and into its skull. Blue fluid sprayed the street as the alien collapsed. For 3 heartbeats, nothing moved. The remaining Vex stared at their fallen leader in what could only be described as shock. Ted chambered another round. The aliens raised their weapons, but farmers and shopkeepers were already emerging from buildings with hunting rifles and shotguns. Simple, mechanical weapons the Vex had dismissed as harmless. The firefight lasted less than a minute. 4 more aliens fell to ordinary bullets. The last one managed to activate a communication device before a shotgun blast tore through its chest. News of Millfield spread through human channels only. Military advisors rushed to the town, collecting alien bodies and technology before Vex reinforcements arrived. When Lord Krill demanded an investigation into the lost patrol, he was told they had suffered an unfortunate accident in difficult terrain. The alien leader grew suspicious but couldn't comprehend what had really happened. In the Vex experience, primitive species simply couldn't harm them. At the underground facility, scientists examined the recovered alien bodies. "Their physical structure is incredibly fragile," Lisa explained to Commander Jackson. "No natural armor, minimal muscle density. They evolved relying entirely on technology for protection." Ben added, "It's like their species never experienced the physical dangers that shaped human evolution. They don't even have a proper fight-or-flight response to physical pain." "Can they adapt?" Jackson asked. "Modify their shields?" "Eventually, perhaps," Ben replied. "But their entire technology is built on different principles. It would be like us suddenly needing to breathe underwater, possible to develop tools for it, but not quickly." Meanwhile, Mike Wilson led a Special Forces team on a critical mission. Under cover of darkness, they approached a small Vex scout ship that had landed in the Amazon rainforest. Using only conventional weapons, they neutralized the crew and captured 1 alien alive. The prisoner, a Vex technician, became the source of vital intelligence. Through careful interrogation, humans learned more about Vex physiology, psychology, and their complete inexperience with physical combat. "They feel pain," Wilson reported after the interrogation. "More intensely than we do. They just haven't experienced it in generations because of their shields. Their society has no concept of enduring physical suffering." As Jackson absorbed this information, reports arrived of Vex forces increasing security at their bases worldwide. They sensed something was wrong but couldn't identify the threat. "They still don't understand," Jackson realized. "They're looking for advanced technology, energy signatures, anything but the simplest weapons in human history." The resistance had its opening. Now it needed to strike before the Vex discovered the truth. The captured Vex technician sat across from Lisa and Ben in the reinforced interrogation room. After 3 days of questioning, the alien, who called himself Engineer Mox, had begun to speak more freely, fascinated by humans despite his situation. "Your species evolved differently," Mox explained, his translator converting the musical tones of his language. The Vex homeworld has no large predators, no need for physical combat. We developed our minds, our energy manipulation. But surely you encountered other species with physical weapons? Ben asked. Mox's large eyes blinked slowly. The Galactic Union consists of 12 species, all evolved along similar paths. Energy manipulation, thought communication. Physical violence is considered primitive. Extinct. Lisa leaned forward. So your shields were never designed to stop physical objects? Why would they be? Mox seemed genuinely confused. Energy is the universal weapon. It can be controlled, modulated, directed with precision. Physical projectiles are unpredictable, wasteful, barbaric. The recording of this conversation was played for world leaders gathered in the underground facility. The implications were staggering. An entire galactic civilization had evolved without the concept of physical warfare. They don't just underestimate us, Professor Brown realized. They fundamentally cannot comprehend us. Meanwhile, aboard the Vex command ship, Lord Krill faced an uncomfortable reality. Reports had reached him about the Millfield incident, the true version, not the cover story humans provided. He'd dismissed them initially, but now similar incidents had occurred near 3 other Vex outposts. Impossible, he muttered, reviewing the evidence. Their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. His science officer reluctantly displayed test results. Our shields operate on energy disruption principles. They were never calibrated for solid matter penetration because no advanced species uses such methods. Krill's 4 hands clenched. Recalibrate them. It would require a complete redesign of our shield technology. Months of work, at minimum. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Lord Krill felt something ancient and unfamiliar. It took him moments to identify it, fear. Tell no one of this weakness, he ordered. Increase patrols, maintain distance from humans. I must consult with the Union Council. But it was too late for secrecy. Across Earth, resistance cells armed with simple firearms had begun targeting isolated Vex patrols. The alien superior technology meant nothing against bullets they couldn't detect or stop. In Washington, Commander Jackson received a transmission from Lord Krill. Your species has violated the protection agreement. The alien leader's voice was controlled but tense. These aggressive actions must cease immediately. Jackson met with the hastily reassembled Earth Defense Council. They know we've discovered their weakness, he announced. We must act now, before they can adapt. The vote was unanimous. After weeks of preparation, hidden armories across the planet were opened. Millions of firearms, from hunting rifles to military-grade weapons, were distributed to trained civilians and military personnel. Remember, Mike Wilson instructed resistance leaders via secure channels. They feel pain intensely but have no experience enduring it. They don't understand concepts like bravery or sacrifice in battle. Use this. Lord Krill made one final attempt at diplomacy, addressing world leaders directly. Your primitive rebellion is futile, he declared, his usually melodic voice harsh. The Vex control technologies you cannot comprehend. Surrender now or face extinction. President Martinez of the United Nations Security Council delivered humanity's response. We have studied your kind carefully, Lord Krill. You evolved without physical conflict, without the hardships that shaped humanity. You never learned what we know all too well, that sometimes survival requires bloodshed. Earth rejects your protection. Earth rejects your authority. Earth stands free. As the transmission ended, Krill gazed down at the blue planet below. For the first time, he saw not a resource to be harvested but something far more dangerous, a world of warriors his people had never truly understood. The true battle for Earth was about to begin. Dawn broke over New York as the first Vex assault ships descended. Their energy weapons carved glowing paths through skyscrapers, shattering glass and concrete. Sirens wailed across the city as civilians rushed to designated shelters. Lord Krill watched from his command ship, expecting swift submission. The display of force was meant to break human resistance before it truly began. Target their power infrastructure next, he ordered. But New York had been preparing. As Vex ground troops deployed from their hovering transports, they found not panicked masses but organized resistance. From rooftops, windows, and subway entrances, bullets tore through the alien ranks. Simple lead projectiles, technology thousands of years old, passed effortlessly through advanced energy shields designed to stop weapons that didn't exist when humans invented gunpowder. A Vex commander frantically called for support as his unit collapsed around him. Impossible. They're using primitive projectiles. Adjust your shields, came the desperate reply. We cannot adjust to stop physical objects. We need new equipment. Similar scenes unfolded across the globe. In London, Paris, Beijing, and dozens of other cities, Vex forces found themselves vulnerable to weapons they had mocked weeks earlier. Their superior technology, devastating against energy-based opposition, offered no protection against bullets, arrows, or even thrown spears. In Denver, Mike Wilson led a National Guard unit equipped with nothing more advanced than rifles and grenades. They ambushed a Vex patrol attempting to secure the city's water treatment facility. Remember your training, Wilson told his soldiers. They've never experienced physical combat. They don't understand pain or fear the way we do. The aliens' tactics proved him right. They bunched together when threatened, made no use of cover, and seemed paralyzed when their energy weapons failed to stop the human advance. The patrol was eliminated in minutes. At the Pentagon Command Center, Commander Jackson coordinated the global defense. Status report? Vex forces retreating in 16 major cities, came the response. They're abandoning ground operations, sir. But victory wouldn't come so easily. Lord Krill, realizing his ground forces were ineffective, changed tactics. Vex ships remained in low orbit, beyond the reach of human weapons, and began precision strikes against military installations. They're targeting our command structure, Jackson realized. They're adapting. This was the critical moment Ben and Lisa had prepared for. Working with engineers from 6 countries, they had developed disruption devices using captured Vex technology. The prototypes are ready, Ben reported. They can temporarily disable Vex ship systems, but we need to get them close enough. Jackson turned to Wilson. Time for Phase 2. Within hours, military planes worldwide took off on what seemed like suicide missions. Stripped of unnecessary equipment to maximize speed, each carried a disruption device and a small strike team. Remember, their ships have the same vulnerability as their personal shields, Wilson briefed his pilots. Physical objects can pass through their energy barriers if moving fast enough. Over Los Angeles, the first test came. A fighter jet accelerated toward a Vex destroyer, evading energy blasts. At the last moment, the pilot released the disruption device directly into the ship's field generator. The alien vessel's lights flickered and died. Its anti-gravity systems failed, sending it plummeting toward the Pacific Ocean. Before it could crash, the strike team parachuted onto its hull, cutting through the surprisingly thin material with ordinary demolition charges. Within minutes, they had captured the ship and its stunned crew. Similar scenes played out across the globe as humanity turned the aliens' weaknesses against them. Old weapons, even centuries-old artillery, proved effective against technology that had never needed to defend against them. By nightfall, 7 Vex ships had been captured or destroyed. The remaining vessels retreated to higher orbit, beyond immediate reach. In his command ship, Lord Krill faced a revolt from his officers. You assured us these primitives were harmless, his second-in-command accused. They are using methods abandoned eons ago, Krill responded, his voice hollow. How could we have known? But as he gazed at the reports of Vex casualties, Krill knew the terrible truth: the Union had gravely underestimated humanity, and they were about to pay the price.